Hi, everyone. My name is Michele Sloan, co-founder of the foundation to fight HABC. First, let me start by saying thank you to all the fabulous speakers and for taking the time out to share updates, provide insight, and help inform our community. Seeing you all today and hearing the work done and effort around this condition gives us all a better understanding of where we stand, what our challenges are, and most importantly, gives us continued hope for the future. I'm really glad the families are here to join us, but I also know none of us would have chosen to meet this way had we not had our loved ones diagnosed with this condition. But what has become evident is the bond we create when coming together, and I know you have all done so in your own way. Not to state the obvious, if you're like me, there are days that feel manageable, and then there are days that feel overwhelming in ways most people around probably just don't understand because they don't live it. The constant thinking ahead, the advocating, the explaining, the moments where you're the only one in the room who truly gets what your child needs. And at the same time, there are moments most people never see, the small wins, the strength, the resilience that gets built in ways no one prepares you for. So before anything else, just take a second and let's acknowledge you are people who live it, know it, and get it. So over time, there are things you learn on this journey that no one really tells you up front. You become the expert whether you want to or not. You learn to read things others miss. You figure out systems that weren't built for conditions like ours. You also learn that progress doesn't always look the way you expected. Sometimes it's measured in inches, not milestones. Sometimes it's holding steady, and that's a win. And maybe one of the hardest parts is how isolating it can feel. That's one of the biggest reasons the foundation exists now for over 10 years, because no family should have to figure out all of this out alone. When we first started our organization in 2015, there was very little awareness around HABC, which was the dominant reference for this condition at the time. The term TUB4A-related leukodystrophy is a relatively new term, given that this is what has since been learned and evolved. In fact, when we first met Dr. Vandiver at Children's National in DC, where she was directing the Myelin Disorder Clinic, we learned there were only 86 documented cases, at least the known cases. Now, 10 years forward, we have approximately 300. This is to be expected given that disease was not identified until May 2nd, 2013. Very few families were connected except via our parent Facebook page, which still exists. Very little was shared in terms of knowledge, and also no clear path forward. Fast forward to today, we have a growing community, we have more awareness leading to earlier diagnosis, and we have real scientific momentum across multiple approaches. Now, as this field evolves, there are different ways these therapies are being developed and accessed, and it's important to understand the differences. One of the most meaningful developments, as you have learned today, has been the work around an ASO, an antisense oligonucleotide, built on the efforts of early pioneers who believed this approach could work. And that work has moved forwards because families have stepped into trials. Connor, who you've heard of before, Eloise, my daughter, donated cells to help test the therapeutic in human cells. And Connor then went in to be the first child treated 3 years later. Thank you to Eloise, Connor, and all the other children that have followed. It takes courage. It moves everything forward. And this N of 1 approach, where a therapy is developed for a single individual, has helped open doors. It has shown what's possible, and it's the patience and innovative thinking that is driving this. At the same time, these paths come with significant considerations: financial, time, and emotional considerations, and outcomes are still unclear. One thing is clear: without trying, nothing will move forward. But the goal isn't to discourage, it's to ensure decisions are made with a full understanding of what's involved. In parallel, we're also seeing movement towards more structured, broader clinical trial programs, like the Synaptics trial that you've heard about. This type of trial follows a more traditional pathway developed at scale within a defined framework, and importantly, without cost to you, the families participating, with the objective to give access to all, if approved, and in turn covered under insurance. It brings consistency, controlled oversight, and the kind of data needed to support broader access if successful. But it's a slow, arduous process, namely due to regulatory requirements and funding challenges. At the same time, there is also ongoing research using AAV gene therapy approaches, and for the foundation, that includes efforts at UMass sponsored by the foundation, and just recently supported by the ULF, which you have heard about also today. And these efforts have been challenging. Getting gene therapy to the right cells safely and effectively is complex, and it hasn't been solved yet for this condition, to my knowledge. But that's part of the process, learning, adjusting, pivoting, and continuing forward. Alongside all of this, thanks to many of you, the Foundation has also completed a drug repurposing study using FDA trial protocol conducted by Unravel Bio. It didn't give us the immediate answers, but it gave us direction. And more research is now underway, building from that work by testing potential compounds further in cells. So while none of this is simple, there continues to be movement. This is real, active progress. And connected to all these efforts is a natural history study that was discussed earlier today as well. And there is also a speech study just initiated out of Australia. I encourage you all to participate in both. If you're not sure how to, please reach out to CHOP or myself or Amy from the UK Foundation. Because data is critical. For rare disease, we don't have large data sets. We have to build them. These studies help define what this condition actually looks like over time. It establishes what progression is, and they become the baseline that allows researchers and regulators to understand whether a therapy is truly making a difference. So participating in these efforts is foundational to everything else that follows. Now, one of the most interesting shifts happening, and this directly affects all of us, is how the FDA is thinking about rare disease. There is a definitive shift in the entire rare disease space that is demanding quicker access and answers. The question is the FDA able to shift as well? Recently, they asked for input on drug repurposing within the rare disease space, which is new and points to a different, broader outlook. They've also been advancing what's called a plausible mechanism framework, and we have talked about this in our blog. In simple terms, that means if there's a strong scientific evidence that a therapy is targeting the underlying cause of a disease, the path forward may not require waiting years and years for traditional long-term outcomes. Patients are actually driving momentum here, just because waiting a decade or more is not working. And more recently, there's also been movement towards real-time clinical trial review, where data is evaluated as it's coming in. That has the potential to short timelines and move promising therapies forward faster. But this only works if the underlying data is strong. And for us, that starts with participation in studies like the natural history study. Before I move on, there's something that matters just as much as research, because families don't experience this condition in theory. You experience in the day-to-day. And a lot of the hardest parts aren't always the diagnosis itself. They're the practical challenges that come with it. Navigating systems that weren't built for you, figuring out equipment, access, logistics, managing transitions, school, care, services, surgeries, trying to connect information that lives in different places, all while trying to navigate everyday life and work. I've spoken to many of you over the years and understand the challenges you face. So one of the ways we support families is by helping those make those pieces more manageable, not by giving medical advice, but by helping connect information, resources, and shared experiences. Sometimes that looks like pointing a family to the right place to start. Sometimes it's sharing what others have learned. Sometimes it's simply helping families not solve the same problem alone. One area we're putting real energy into right now is technology, just because one of the biggest challenges families face isn't just the condition, it's managing everything around it. And over time, one of the most poignant comments I've ever heard from a mother was, "I'm afraid what will happen to my child when I'm no longer around." Information is scattered, knowledge lives in your head, and there's no single place that brings it all together in a way that is useful for others. So we're working towards building a centralized AI-assisted platform designed for families, individually designed for families. A place where information, daily insights, and lived experience can come together, and over time, help inform the care of your child, and even potentially research. And along with that, and given the aging of many of our children, we are focused on support for transitioning to adulthood, not just for our condition, but for leukodystrophies overall. The goal is simple: to make life more manageable day to day, and to make sure what you've learned over the years isn't lost, but built upon with a long-term outlook to the future for you personally and your family and caregivers. Our role is not to replace your doctors, but to help you make sense of everything around that, to bring together information, resources, and lived experiences in a way that's actually usable. Because this journey extends far beyond the clinical side. And support isn't just about managing the condition, it's about navigating life around it. So now I wanted to touch on how the foundation operates. Our focus is connection, awareness, guidance, and research. But just as important is how we make decisions. One of the things that truly distinguishes the foundation is the composition of our board. We have a deliberately diverse team that includes families living this every day, scientists, legal expertise, and educators. That combination is intentional. It keeps us grounded in real life impact, informed by science, thoughtful in how we operate, and focused on making information accessible, making responsible decisions expected in our role as a nonprofit advocacy, and ensuring sound stewardship of the funds we raise. It ensures our decisions are responsible, balanced, objective, and aligned across all aspects of rare disease advocacy. One of the things I've come to understand through this journey is that rare disease advocacy often involves incredible difficult decisions and choices for families, for clinicians, for researchers, and for organizations like ours. In a community like ours, where science is evolving rapidly with changes in the industry, emotions understandably run deep, and there is rarely a perfect roadmap. Many decisions are made while information is still developing, while questions remain unanswered, and while families are balancing hope, urgency, fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion all at the same time. Every family in this virtual room carries a different story, different medical realities, different support systems, different financial pressures, different levels of access, and sometimes that can create feelings of uncertainty, frustration, isolation, or even perceived inequity as families try to navigate opportunities that may not be available or appropriate for everyone. These emotions are real and they deserve compassion. That is why responsible advocacy matters so much. That means supporting progress while also recognizing the complexity of the science. It means encouraging hope that while also understanding that every potential therapy carries both possible benefits and possible risks, especially in the world of experimental and emerging treatments, where there is still so much to learn. It also means recognizing that participation in research or treatment pathways can place enormous emotional, logistical, and financial strain on families. Travel, testing, time away from work, coordination of care, uncertainty around outcomes. These are not small burden for families already carrying so much. It means helping families make informed decisions in partnership with their medical teams, while understanding that every child, every circumstance, and every family's comfort level with risk may be different. Some families may choose to pursue experimental treatments. Some may decide the unknowns are too significant for their child at that moment in time. Some may qualify for opportunities that others cannot access. None of these realities define the value of a family, the love you have for their child, or their importance within this community. Our responsibility as advocates is not simply to push forward as fast as possible. It is to help families navigate these deeply personal decisions by being informed, with support, compassion, humility, and care while continuing to build the scientific and clinical foundation needed for long-term progress. None of us chose this path, but collectively we are changing it. Thank you for your time today.